hello, hello, hello. It is Wednesday and it's time for Pop and Politics. We are live in the studio tonight. Again, as I always say, join the conversation by leaving a comment on our Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. And don't just comment, subscribe. Subscribe to our social media so you always know when we post new content. Again, I'm KJ, and let me introduce you to my co-host. Of course, we have Crystal, T, and Shelly, and tonight we are joined by Delano Squires. So Delano is a contributor for Fearless with Jason Whitlock and an opinion contributor for Blaze News. He is a Heritage Foundation Research Fellow and has previously written for Black and Married with Kids, The Root, and The Federalist. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right. So we are going to get right into this. Again, as I mentioned, you guys can check us out here on YouTube. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify under the name Pop and Politics. We are also on Rumble as well. Again, as I mentioned, we are independent media, so we appreciate the support. If you do want to support us in any way, we love our super chatters, so you can definitely super chat tonight. And then you can also donate to our website at www.popandpoliticslive.com. Again, you can go there for up-to-date information. We are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's set it off. All right. So we are going to get right into it. We have Delano here for the hour. We're talking about the article that you wrote recently in Newsweek, basically talking about America needs a Black Lives Matter movement. So you guys saw, we opened up the show with that Moxie clip. That is a Netflix show, comedy drama written by Amy Poehler. And as you can see, it kind of talks about feminism. It's really feminist based. It's basically based off of a 16-year-old and how they're starting a feminist movement within high school. And so I thought that would be good to start off to just kind of talk about what we're dealing with in the culture right now. I mean, we are getting feminism overload everywhere you turn. And so that one was specifically talking about our youth. Yeah. And so then we have your article here talking about America needs a Black Lives Movement. Can you talk about why you think that is?
Sure. I mean, I wrote it because everybody's familiar, obviously, with Black Lives Matter, the organization. And one of the things that I said in the piece is that Black Lives Matter, as one of their founding principles, they said they were committed to disrupting the quote-unquote Western prescribed nuclear family. And my argument is, whatever you may think about the issues in the Black community, too many nuclear families is not one of them. So I wanted to put pen to paper and say, no, what we need is stronger families. What we need is to rebuild the family. And what we need is a Black Lives Matter movement to do that, to put marriage back before carriage and restore order to our households, because everything starts in the house. Children are born in a hospital, most of them, but they're not born, into a school. They're born into a family. And until we are able to get that issue sort of corrected, we're going to have all different types of, issues that we struggle to deal with, because particularly progressives love to talk about root causes. They love to talk about structures, every structure except family structure, and every institution aside from the institution of marriage. So that's why I wanted to write it. I wanted to spark some conversation, and I appreciate y'all, having me on the show.
Absolutely. Shelly, I wanted to go to you next.
Okay, Delano. So those feminists, and I like to just clarify, I call them postmodern feminists because they're different waves of feminism.
Right.
However, based on your article and in some of your writings, and I have a question. So America has a lot of values, education being one of them. For Black people in particular, education has been an important value. So how can Black people now base or balance getting an education? Because this is what we have been told: education, get your education, girl. Don't rely on a man, things like that. So how do we balance that with the innate desire, I believe, that most women have to be married and have children?
That's a great question. I mean, so I think part of it is we should specify what an education is. And I would say that education is equal parts scholarship and discipleship, academic mastery and moral formation, right? So on a K through 12 level, that takes a particular shape, and obviously K through 12 education is compulsory. But I don't really see the value add for a lot of college degrees because we are the first generation who goes to college and comes back with less wisdom and knowledge than our foreparents.
Repeat it again.
Absolutely.
Right? College is where you go to learn that a man can get pregnant. Right?
And we pay for it.
We didn't if gender ideology started on the shop floor of Jiffy Lube or Midas, it never would have got anywhere. But because it starts on a college campus and people say, wow, if somebody from Harvard said something, then it must really be true.
Yes.
Then you get kids who are indoctrinated. So to me, a lot of particularly post-secondary education is not really about exploration. It's not about strengthening the mind. It's not about wonder. It's not about lifelong learning. It's about indoctrination. It's about conformity. Even if, and diversity really means people look different but think the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I don't really see it as a value add in many instances. If you want to study engineering, law, medicine, something like that, that's one thing. But personally, and we were talking before, I have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. I'd be fine if none of them wanted to go to college, as long as they were doing something productive with their lives. So yeah, I don't, this notion that it's college or bust, and particularly for women, where it's, no, forget about, he's a good guy. I know you're only 23. You need to get your 2 masters and your 3 PhDs, and you need to make manager. When you turn 35 years old,
Right.
then you can be ready to look for somebody.
Right.
Now, let me ask you, right? But
And there's nothing wrong. And let me be
Nothing
clear.
wrong with working
Be
as a
clear.
teacher.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with any of that. Even if there's nothing wrong with the timeline per se, but saying that to young women presupposes that when you let the 12 o'clock train pass, that there's one coming at 12:15, and that's not always the case.
Right.
So,
well, let me ask you because Ebony K. Williams, she came out. What was it? Maybe like a month ago, with a viral video, and she talked about how a lot of women are foregoing relationships, foregoing marriage, and going to school, making money, coming out making a good amount of money, and it is starting to, then by the time they want a relationship, they want marriage, it's kind of too late.
right.
She also talked about how we have a dichotomy right now where Black women are making a lot of money and they're sort of saying, I don't need a man. So what do you say to that? How do we fix that portion of the marriage situation?
Well, I think there's 2 things going on, right? One of the problems with a lot of our social commentary is that people, both on the left and the right, are in denial in the differences between men and women. So I would say that men and women, created by God, in God's image, equal in dignity and worth, different in form and function.
Absolutely.
Right? We tend to want different things. There's a reason that most women want a man who is taller and stronger and makes more money, right, than they do. It's called hypergamy, sort of in terms of that sort of phenomenon.
But it's a bad thing. They make that a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing to me. I mean,
Not to me
it
either.
is what it is. Like Bloomberg did a study of who men and women tend to date based on their profession. And male surgeons tend to date female surgeons, female nurses, female teachers. Female surgeons tend to date male surgeons, CEOs, and lawyers. So you're not going to see a TV show where there's a boss babe CEO and her husband is her executive assistant.
No,
That's not happening.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Well, unless it's one of them. But
even then.
But I want to say that to say that men and women are different, right? They look for different things out in the dating market. So I think, and this is particularly to men, I'll make this message. If you are a man on a college campus, and even particularly HBCU, the ratio of women to men is so much in your favor that you will be a fool not to consider looking for your future wife while you spending 4 years on campus. And one of my frustrations, and I'll say this, I've said this online, Gary Chambers is a guy who ran for Senate, I think it's the state of Louisiana. He showed up to Southern, right? My mother-in-law went to Southern. A bunch of my wife's aunts graduated from Southern. And he was telling a room full of young men and women, Southern's HBCU, obviously. He was telling the men, well, y'all need to care as much about abortion as the women because you may go out after homecoming and you have a good night and something happens and you don't want this mistake and you're going to be on papers and all that stuff. And I'm saying, instead of him saying, fellas, the odds of finding a good woman will never be in your favor like they are right now. So as you study to be a scholar, think about also being a spouse and get you one of these good Black women, marry her, y'all have a big family, y'all have some babies, so on and so on and so forth. But he went pushing the message of abortion as opposed to marriage and family. So I think it's going to take a lot for us to get out of that.
Right.
But I think the first thing is just to acknowledge that these are some serious issues.
Well, I'll push back on you
Please
with the notion that fellow New Yorker, with the notion that that they're fools for not trying to find a woman on college campus and that the odds are in their favor. How do we deal with the fact of the matter with the culture, Black culture in particular, that even though we have very beautiful brown-skinned sisters out there, they are not prepared to be wives?
Well, let me say this, and I agree with your assessment. I also think most men are not prepared to be husbands.
Okay.
The median age of first marriage in 1980 was 25 for men, 22 for women. That's about where my parents were when they got married. Now it's 29 for men, 29 for women, 31 for men. It's a little bit higher for Black men and Black women. I agree with your assessment. We're not teaching our children to be husbands and wives.
Oh no.
And part of it's because we no longer value marriage as the bedrock of family life the way we used to. The other part of it is, I think, and this is particularly for women, like if you ask anybody, well, what are a man's responsibilities to his family? Everybody's gonna come with at least two: to provide and to protect. Now you say, okay, what are a woman's responsibilities to a family?
Just
cook and clean.
she's the gift to the family.
Now
Cook and clean.
Right?
Cook and clean is
Basically,
basic. The basic stuff.
Oh, not no more. That's fighting words. You say that.
Correct. But even cooking and cleaning are tasks, right? As opposed to providing and protecting are roles.
Nurturing the children is
Right. So I would say to support and nurture.
Yes.
But those sound like fighting words because I think for women, any sense of specific roles, duties, and obligations to anyone outside of yourself feels like restriction, boundary, and oppression to women who've been trained in sort of post-second wave feminism or womanism, right? However you want to call it, it's all the same thing. So I think part of it, I agree with you. The average, young person is not being trained in that way. And that's why I think to get out of this, it took us at least 3 generations to get in. It's probably going to take us at least 3 generations to get out.
I want to go to you, T. But before we go to you, I want to play this clip if I could. This is clip number 3. Take a look at this, and then I'd like for us to respond because it's talking about the Black church.
The Black church caters to the Black woman. And the reason the Black church caters to the Black woman is because the Black woman is the provider. She has more income and education than the man. So they're looking at this financially. They also have a vested interest in her never getting married. The pastor is the metaphorical husband of all the single women in the community. I'm not saying he's sleeping with them. I'm saying he's keeping them so distracted with Jesus that they never find a husband, and that's the way he wants it to stay. Because if she finds a husband, she won't have as much time to be donating to the church home. Wow. So the Black church benefits from single motherhood. They don't want our sisters married.
All right. So that was Dr. Umar. For you guys who don't know, he's a pretty big in the Black community. He's not, wouldn't call him conservative, but
Pan-African.
Yeah, Pan-African, right. He is Pan-African. So I want to go to you, T, though. You did have a thought there before we played the movie. The clip. Go ahead, please, with you.
so gone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll get
Okay.
back to
Yeah,
it.
I remember.
Okay,
But
okay.
That's
So I want to talk about. I want to respond to his clip because he is saying that the black church is detrimental to marriage. Almost so. He also mentioned how they pretty much are feeding off of single mothers being in leadership positions within the churches. Because of that, they're getting money from these people. You talk about the black church, rebuilding the black church family requires a concentrated approach. I'm sorry, you said one of the most important institutions in this fight is the black church. Many black pastors across the country have thriving family ministries. Unfortunately, many progressive preachers see support for abortion access and same-sex marriage as more worthy social justice causes than rebuilding the black family.
It's true.
So how do we change the culture in black church? Is the black church is it detrimental to this?
Well, I'm a person that believes in defining terms. So when I say I'm a Christian, so I don't think that there's such a thing as an actual black church, right? I think there's one church,
Cultural.
body of Christ.
I agree.
Past, present, future. But I understand what people mean when they talk about the black church, right? Which has a specific cultural context within this country that's done a tremendous amount of work in terms of fighting for the rights of black people. And I get that, and I respect that. But when we say black church, when I wrote about the black churches that I was criticizing, I'm talking about the black churches and the pastors for whom income inequality and how they would define systemic racism are what they think of when they hear the term bondage, and not bondage to sin. So when I speak about the churches that are important, I'm talking about the churches that are gospel teaching
Yes.
and Bible reading churches.
Typically evangelical churches.
Correct. Churches who can affirm the reality of biological sex based on Genesis 1:27 and how man and woman are made in God's image, who can affirm the reality of biblical marriage based on Genesis 2:24, right? When God brought Adam and Eve together to perform the first marriage ceremony and said a husband must leave his family and cleave to his wife. Those types of churches who actually believe their Bibles are critically important to helping to restore marriage as the foundation of black family life. The other churches, the so-called churches, right? Those are going to be in a category of unexpected adversaries, because those are the ones who say, "Oh, those churches over there, they preach hate. We believe in marriage equality, and 2 men or 2 women, and eventually it's going to be 3 men." And then there's
And the pastors.
And the dogs and the pets.
correct.
the pastors are that way, and the minister of music is that way, and
Correct.
those churches are overshadowing the first churches.
I
that we're
agree.
talking about.
I agree. So part of it
Woke
is correcting that. But I'm thankful, and this has always been the case throughout history, is God always has a remnant. And it may not be a loud remnant, but that doesn't mean that they aren't fruitful.
Yeah.
So,
And even to go back to what Dr. Umar said, I know we do have the woke churches and the churches that are preach inclusivity, but even the churches now that are saying Jesus is your husband, you need to cuddle up to Jesus at night. He makes you. They're literally encouraging. They're encouraging women that you don't need to have a man to be happy, but all the statistics state that women are happier when they are in a monogamous relationship, healthy relationship, and so those are those are enemies as well.
oh, absolutely, I
That's
agree.
because of going back to, like you said, what Dr. Umar said, because I believe that in those cases, it's because the male pastors are controlling and they want those women to stay in the church so that they can do and say whatever they want. Because you remember back in the days when mother so-and-so, her husband didn't go to church. He came to church, he sat in the car, or he'd stay home while she was in church. And then, eventually when he was about to die or whatever, then he would come to church and sit down.
That's not back in the day. That's still happening.
But I'm saying, the husbands didn't support the black churches. The husbands didn't support the black pastors.
I don't think that's historically correct.
I think what Dr.
Yes, it
Umar
is.
is
I know
saying,
plenty of them.
I think the point, at least what I think Dr. Umar is making, is that when churches are more business minded. And many churches, they are a business. A lot of them are nonprofits, and a lot of them do partner, if you will, with the IRS. I'll just say that out there loosely. But when churches, the business aspect of churches becomes the main goal, then I can see businesses market their product. They need an audience to quote unquote sell their product to. And in the cases that Dr. Umar was talking about, these are largely the single women. They typically have more money than the men in their ethnic groups, right? Because they're single, they can get the 2 masters and 3 PhDs. So therefore, they are the ones that are funding, if you will, the business side of the church. So I don't have a problem with what he said. I don't think it's the church universal.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something that T said, because I actually think this is very important in terms of the dynamic. And this is not just among Black men, for a lot of men, they realize that at best they are the 4th most respected man in their wife's life, after her father, after her boss, and after her pastor.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
And if a guy understands that, yes, he's going to have some sort of resentment towards the pastor. So that's why I'm saying those are places that should be marked and avoided.
Yeah.
But churches, and I've been to a few that have, again, thriving family ministries where, you know, they work with the men, they work with the women. You know, it might be a Proverbs 31 ministry, which is good.
Right.
I'll say this. I think Proverbs 31 is a fantastic, you know, book of the Bible, chapter, right?
Yeah, but not woman is, like you claim
Well,
to
I
be.
think a lot of people
Correct.
had the wrong image with the Proverbs 31.
Correct.
You should.
Because I think
But
what
everyone
happens
wants
is
to
that
claim to be in there
people
now.
lean into the Proverbs 31's
And it's
sense
not all they
of
think it is.
industriousness. And they skip over, you know, how she was caring for her family.
Exactly.
But I think part of what we need is a Titus II revolution where older women are teaching
the
younger
young-
women how to care for husbands and families. But part of the problem is that in our community, we have a lot of old people, but not many elders.
Right.
On either side, men or women.
Because of social media and attention. The old women are twerking just as much as the younger women.
They compete against the
compete-
30-year-old.
I mean,
30-year-olds competing against the 21-year-old.
They
You're
look
twinning
good.
with your daughter, your
Right.
high school daughter,
Yeah.
but to go back to what you said, Shelley, and talking about Dr. Umar, like I actually don't think that it's a successful business model at all. I mean, like these churches are dying without the bedrock of society, whether we like it or not. Men are the bedrock of society. I know we've tried to change it, but you see what society looks like when women are in charge. And unfortunately, the West has become a matriarchy. And the church is a symbol of that it is failing so bad. People can say whatever they want to about TD Jakes. They said the most success came from, I mean, the reason why the Potter's House is so successful, it is 50% men.
Well,
50%
that's
men.
why I look at Geno Jennings, his church. It's probably 75% men because I don't know about the men that go to Potter's House, but the men who you can see exactly. You can tell the difference between
Swallowed up.
pause. You can tell the difference between a man that would go to Geno Jennings' church versus a man that would go to Potter's House.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
I have a question for you, Delano. So the title of your article is Black Wives Matter, right? So what about those people who might say, well, why does it have to be a black wife? Why can't it just be a wives matter? Or do black wives, should they only marry black men? What if they are married to a non-black man? Is this still an important part of your article?
That's like all lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I use Black Lives Matter, part of it for wordplay. Part of it because I think, obviously, talking about wife implies husband, right? Now, I'm also writing a book on this particular topic, right? Restoring marriage is the cornerstone of Black family life. And in my intro, I address all these issues. One of them is why marriage. One of them is why the Black family specifically. And part of the reason I say is because, one, it's what I know, it's my experience. But the Black family has also been studied and analyzed in ways that nobody else's sort of family structure has. But to respond to your question specifically, both the left and the right invoke race when it's convenient for them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Right? So, and I'm on social media a fair amount. I see colorblind conservatives who get very clear. They get Visine in their eyes when it comes to certain topics, when it comes, particularly in the Black community. So if you're talking about shootings and crime in Baltimore, then they can see color very, very clearly. The way I break it down is that for the right likes to, or is more prone to racialize problems and generalize solutions.
Wow.
And the left is more likely to generalize problems, all right, and racialize solutions.
Wow.
So it's and I've said this on a different topic. The quickest way to turn a progressive into a White Lives Matter activist is to talk about street crime in Baltimore or Chicago. Then it's what about white on white crime? Oh, so now you care about white people. Okay, I see. But when you talk about police brutality, you never ask what about the white victims of police brutality or police violence. And I think on a similar thing on the right, it's we have no problems criticizing the Black family. But if you're saying your prescription is specifically for the Black family, then it's, well, why can't we talk about all families? And I do. I mean, in my day job, I talk about all families because I think marriage, biblically defined, is critically important. But I also understand the context in which I live. And I also understand that for a lot of Black folk, if the letter is not addressed specifically to us, we don't think that the message is meant for us.
And that's a problem.
When
it is.
That's a big problem.
It is a problem, but I just try to, live in the world.
Reality.
That is not the one that I wish was.
Right.
When it comes to the issue of the Black family, and I've heard things like, Black family, they can't be together today because of the history and because of slavery, and the families were torn apart. Do you think that, in your opinion, there's an essence of that still may be relevant today?
No, I'm saying this. The first chapter of my book is going to tackle the issue of slavery because I know whenever we talk about the Black family, it's the first thing people go to, and I may title that first section "Broken but Not Destroyed." I would never deny that slavery had a tremendous impact on Black family formation, because if you are considered chattel and property, the slave master has no legal obligation to acknowledge your marriage, right? So you would have people split up and sent to different plantations and so on and so forth. But here's what I found in doing some research. One is that Black men and women actually did get married in slavery.
Yeah.
And then two is that when emancipation came, one of the first things that they did was try to put their families back together. And there's actually a project, I think it's called the Last Scene Project. It's a church, I want to say in Philadelphia and Villanova University, that digitized ads from across the newspapers, typically in the South, of people looking for loved ones. And it'll be like something to the effect of, my name is James Archer. My wife, Patty, was sold. I'm in Texas. My wife, Patty, was sold to the Lucas Plantation in Louisiana. We have 4 children. If anyone sees her, tell her to reach out to me, care of Pastor so-and-so. So what I gather from that is that Black folk were willing to fight and go through hell and high water to reunite their families. And that was and that was at a time where the racial oppression and hatred was visceral, and it was real, and it was overt. But right now what we have is a situation where even guys who make a lot of money, who may make $40 million, who may be the mayor of a major American city, do not believe that marriage is a requirement for having children.
Apparently.
One of the reasons why we see that a lot of men don't believe it should be a requirement is, and that's what I wanted to ask you, one thing I did not see you touch on in the article, is the sexual revolution. So, we were talking about a clip of a group of woke women, Black women, talking about how slavery had caused them to feel like that they are able to have sex and without consequence, should not be judged, and that's kind of been across the board. Like women feel like now, that they want to have sex with as many individuals as they can. They don't want monogamy. This is what's pushed on the left. So I'm not sure if that's the real thing, but this is what is pushed on the left, that they should not be judged. Whore is a bad word right now. I mean, it should be removed from the dictionary.
Or it's a badge of honor.
Right. Well, and they don't feel like you should be able to call them,
Right.
you know, a whore. So my question is, how do we tackle that in the sense of marriage, of promoting monogamy and marriage, when we have a culture right now that says sex should be when you want it, where you want it, how you want it, with women and men?
I mean,
should we be teaching it to our young? Should we be pushing abstinence more? Abstinence. That's what I want.
I mean, absolutely, and you know, obviously, particularly for religious Americans, right? So you talk about sex being saved for marriage, right? And it's in its safest place within the bounds of marriage. I think there's a problem on both the left and the right, for men and for women, as it relates to the sexual revolution. I'll say this: if you meet a woman who says, "I can have sex with as many guys as I want, and it doesn't bother me," she should be terrified, because if and when she ever meets a man who she wants to marry, and they go to unite their bodies as one, and her natural inclination is to say, "Man, when is his Uber gonna get here? Oops, I forgot this is my husband." She should understand that all of what she was doing for all those years has finally caught up to her. And the chemical release that should make her feel closer to that man is no longer there. Now, I would say the same thing for men.
Oh, yeah.
If you were the type of man who says, "Well, I'm gonna sow my wild oats and I'm gonna settle down when I get married," if you have never shown the ability or the desire to be faithful to one woman, and you're 46 years old and you're now getting married, you're gonna have trouble. If you are addicted to pornography and you cannot be satisfied by one woman, a real woman or your own woman, you're going to have trouble. So I think how we've handled sex in our society is terrible for everyone. And I think this is a reminder, and all it does is push me even closer, like push me deeper into my faith. Because everybody's come along since the beginning of time and said, "I know this world and this system better than God, the creator."
Yeah.
And every time they push the ball down under the water, it just pops right back up. So they think, "Oh no, we can be polyamorous and it's fine. My wife goes out with her boyfriend on Tuesday nights and it's cool. You know, I wash the laundry and when I come back, I say, 'How was your date, dear?' Then next thing you know, he crying, he dyed his hair blue, and you know, he down in vodka, so on and so forth." So how we handle sex is not good. And I think sometimes the church has gotten it wrong. It shouldn't be scary or icky. It's beautiful by God's design, but within its proper context, right? If you buy a home and it has a fireplace, that fire can warm you on a cold winter day.
Or
Can burn.
Yeah.
can burn.
Or it can burn your house down.
Yep.
The fire belongs in the fireplace.
Right.
And I think, as I said, sex belongs within marriage. Now, most people have gotten that wrong. I certainly did. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean I can't
Course correct.
course correct and hope for something better for my children. And that's what I'm saying.
So I got a
But
question.
before you go, I do have to acknowledge our super chatter here. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Mark.
Mark.
Shelly, can you read that there?
Oh, it says, can you see it, T? Something about the
Keep
keep
spreading.
spreading the truth, ladies. North Carolina loves y'all. Even the married ones.
Ah! Thank you, Mark. Oh, we have another one there.
Thank you, trucker.
Yes, he says, "Love you, ladies."
Love you too.
Yes, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah.
So I had a question, sort of a little devil's advocate here.
You know, Satan don't need no representation.
Well, that's true. No, you're right.
He was-
As they say in the black culture, the devil is a lie.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so you touched on it. You were talking about how many of us have gotten it wrong, right? So what about the couple or the long-term monogamous couple who don't get married? Maybe they have, I don't know, several children. They've been together for 20, 30 something years.
Yeah.
And in the community largely, they're seen as a couple, right? And don't hear me out. I'm not demeaning either one of them, their dignity. That's not what I'm doing. So why should they go and get married now?
I mean, that's a good question. I would say that scenario is probably the least likely scenario for couples who choose not to get married. Like, America is not Europe, where you have a culture of people being together 40, 50 years without the benefit of marriage and being in a monogamous relationship raising children. What's much more likely is a couple, they together, they have a baby, Father says, I'm gonna step up to the plate, Maury, and taking the kid to school and so on and so forth. And then eventually, if they don't get married, they break up, and both parties go on to somebody else and repeat the process. But I would say I still think marriage it provides the greatest level of safety and protection for women and children, right? It creates legal obligations and communal obligations between husbands and wives, and it creates a place of safety for particularly in loving low conflict households, for children. Because I think part of what we should do, and even with I talk about Black Lives Matter, but I think restoring marriage as the foundation of the Black family can even be framed as a civil rights issue from the perspective of the child, who has a right to the affection and protection of the man and woman who created them. And that right is best exercised within the context of a marriage and a marital unit. So I'm always, and I think there's ways that even whether it's policy or programs, you can incentivize that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, what do you feel the role should be of the state within marriage? Does the state have a obligation or incentive to incentivize marriage, and is that sort of constitutional?
No, I think it certainly has an incentive, because when the family falls apart, then part of the reason that governments are so big in big cities is because of family issues, right? So if mom and dad break up and dad does not financially support the child, then somebody's got to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And we have, and this is broadly speaking, not just within Black culture, but the feminists of the 60s said we don't need men, right? We don't need their money. We don't need marriage. But they didn't smash patriarchy. They just replaced one for the other.
Exactly.
So they got rid of the man, and now they have bureaucratic patriarchy, where the elected official and the unelected bureaucrat is the one who says, "Well, I'll make sure you got a roof over your head," so on and so forth.
With good intentions. I mean, initially,
true,
because somebody had to help with the child.
See, but the government is an absent father and a terrible spouse because he just got too many households to support. It's like one big harem.
I heard you say that.
Right.
I love that.
But even on a small level, right? And it's not even policy. Any city, and I worked in local government for a long time, and I ran public awareness campaigns, can take a portion of its human services and child family services budget and run ads in every bus shelter, on every billboard, in every train station, in every train car that says, in this city, we put marriage before carriage.
But what about
Yeah, they do that
marriage?
here.
Marriage is just a certificate. Marriage is just a piece of paper. We can still have the same insurance and have the same, men don't want to get married because the women are going to take all of the money that they don't have. So
I like how you threw that in there.
what do you say to that?
I like how you threw that in there. I mean, people say that. Yes,
You get
and divorce is terrible. I understand why some people think that it's necessary. But many of the divorces I'm familiar with, and just nationally in terms of the data, are not because of the 3 big A's, right? Adultery, abuse, or abandonment.
Right.
It's I've grown out of love. We just couldn't work it out. It's that type of stuff. Culture stuff. Now, this piece of paper thing, yes, do you get a marriage certificate? Sure. I don't know any person, any serious entrepreneur who would get into a business venture with somebody without having the set of duties and obligations spelled out on a piece of paper with 4 corners. But when it comes to family, then it's just like, oh, well, we just, whatever. And that to me doesn't make any sense. So and if we had a culture, again, where people stayed together, committed to one another for life without the benefit of the paper, then I could say, okay, well, some people make that happen. But that's not the case. And I think having those commitments on paper, I think taking those vows in front of family and friends.
Right.
And not from the internet.
Correct. Is extremely powerful.
But
go ahead.
No. I was just gonna ask you, so I agree that we could spend money advertising marriage before carriage or whatever, but how do we attack the cultural aspect where unfortunately a lot of us are not prepared to be wives.
Dysfunctional.
Yeah.
I mean, like that doesn't like solve that problem.
So I think it's a couple of things. One is the way I frame it is that the fight to restore marriage as the cornerstone of Black family life is about making the case that marriage is valuable, desirable, accessible, and indispensable for starting a family. So I think getting people to feel like, no, this is something that I should do, right, that I need to do is step one.
Yeah.
Now, how to do it, I think is step two. Now, again, I think churches do have a role to play where you have good elders, men and women, with a good head on their shoulders who can say, follow me as I follow Christ in my relationship. We've been together for a long time. We've gone through all sorts of ups and downs. We can give you a sense of how to get there. I think every HBCU should have as part of its written mission to improve relationships between Black men and Black women.
Wow, that's good.
They can run wife school. They can run husband boot camp.
She's
They
been
can-
through wife school.
Okay. So I didn't even know that. I was talking, right?
But I've also been attacked for have gone to wife school.
Right. So
Usually by non-wives, but
No, some of them are, but just not, you know.
the type of wife you are.
I love
Right.
it. I didn't go to wife school. Hard knock. I'm on marriage.
But I'm not a wife. I'm the only one on the panel that's not a wife, so there goes that.
But
But that's
preparation.
because I'm waiting for it.
But preparation is important,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Right.
You don't want to start basic training in the middle of the war,
Mm-mm.
right? So what I'm saying is, HBCUs have a critical role to play. I also think K through 12 schools, like I mentioned in the success sequence, introducing young children, middle high school kids, to the 3-step anti-poverty program or plan. Finish high school, get a job, get married, and have kids.
in that order.
All of those things are within our hands, right? And then I think art and culture have a extremely important role to play.
Mhm.
And I lean on this one a lot just because, I'm a person who believes in the power of culture. I told a story to some interns recently. I remember being in college, this is early 2000s. And this is when all the guys was wearing throwback jerseys.
Oh, yeah. I was Hornets.
And I remember,
No.
I saw the Raiders and some people had a Virginia Squires jersey. My last name is Squires.
Oh,
That's
right,
pretty
right. Yeah. I was the Charlotte Hornets.
And then Jay-Z came out with a song. He said, I'm on my grown man tip. I'm wearing button downs. All them jokers from my school went out to the mall. Jerseys were in the closet. And now they got Old Navy button downs. So that's the power of culture. And unfortunately, in our community, for 30 plus years, we have been bathing and marinating in a culture, particularly through hip hop, that promotes violence among men, promiscuity, and degradation of women, and drug abuse for young people.
Yeah.
And to think that you're going to have a young man, 25-year-old, growing up in West Baltimore or East Flatbush, Brooklyn, or the South Side of Chicago, whose parents are not married, nobody in his family is married, none of his friends' parents are married, and he spent his entire life hearing that his female peers are
Bitches
B's
and hoes.
and H's, right? Disagreeable and sexually promiscuous women. And to think he gonna say, man, I really should marry her before I give her a baby. It's ludicrous. So I think part of it is on us.
Right.
Because if a white rapper got caught using the N-word, or Eminem, if all his videos had Black women in them, and he was grabbing on their backside,
Yeah,
Black folk would get upset about that.
And so, and to piggyback off of that, the celebration and justification of single motherhood, and like I said earlier, I'm a divorced mother, or I call myself an unmarried mother. But the celebration of single motherhood, which is different in the culture, is the dysfunction is dysfunctional, but yet it's still happening, and it's celebrated on the left and everywhere. So how can we, even for the ones who are already mothers, how can they make Black wives matter and become a Black wife? Like, get rid of that mentality and fix it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and it's important. And I think, let me say it this way. I think, particularly on sensitive subjects about people's personal decisions and children and, marriage and all the other stuff, it's important to say, look, this is not about judging a person, particularly someone who's done something. Again, I got 4 kids, and I was there through all of my wife's pregnancies. And I do believe that new mothers are the only group of people who can cry over spilled milk, right? Because I understand how valuable.
Oh yes,
Literally. Literally.
you done pumped it.
Correct.
Literally.
Everybody else, you got to say, look, it's already done. The baby's here.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and we should celebrate
Mhm.
the child. And I'll say something. This is oftentimes for conservatives. People on the center right, black and white, are trying to hold two different positions together. One is that we believe in life and we affirm life.
Mhm.
And then the other, oftentimes, unfortunately, is that single moms have lost all their value in the dating marketplace. So when you do that, is you create an incentive for a woman to say, I'd rather get rid of my mistake by having an abortion.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should do that. I'll say it this way. I'll use a different comparison. Every urban school district in this country, again, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New Orleans, in the inner city, caters to a significant number of parents who have children that they want to go to college, and the parents themselves have not. And the parents understand that the promotion of college in the school is not a judgment on my life decisions. It's not a criticism of my life decisions. And they understand that I want something better for my children. So I can acknowledge the mistakes that I made and also say, and I want my kids to do something different. So I do think it's important, both the message and the framing, and how we talk about these things. But I also think at a certain point, men and women got to put on their big boy and big girl pants.
Well, you mean
because
you're speaking to and we have to clarify this. You're speaking against the manosphere. You're speaking against Kevin Samuels.
No, he's not.
no.
Yeah, single mother.
He can speak for himself.
Mothers.
Wait.
Get on
Wait,
he
yeah,
can
I know.
speak for
Oh,
Y'all
yeah.
get on my nerves right now.
No, because
that
I
man
mean,
rest.
I'm just saying because it has to be said because this is what's been really this is a big portion right now of Black culture. You do have a large amount of men
And women
who are saying that single mothers are pretty much, not worth it. I mean, they break them down as far as they've lost all
dignity.
That's
and
not
credibility.
true.
That
That's
they
not
are
true.
they are the bane. I'm going to say it the way I interpret it. That a lot men and women. I'm with KJ because we talk about this a lot. Men and women in this manosphere and women's sphere, whatever you want to call it. You have a large segment of them that will denigrate the woman only. And my retort is always number two things. Well, where's the man? Because it does take two, right? And number two is, why does she get the blame? Just that baby's here. Now, I have a disclaimer I want to tell you. You mentioned about the baby's already here. I have for a long time not attended several baby showers who were given for single parents, right? Now, having said that, what most people don't know, and I'm not saying this for accolades, what most people don't know is that I would often still buy the baby a gift and buy the mother and maybe even the father a gift on the outside, but I would not attend in presence. But having said that, we do have this law, I think a good segment, at least socially, culturally, where the woman is hammered as if she does these things on her own. I'm not excusing her for whatever she does do, but
she has they do say she has lost some type of social credit score, what have you. Kevin Samuels.
No. Let me clarify what people, and I believe that Black women are misinterpreting. The fact of the matter is African American women, we have a problem because we tend to overvalue ourselves. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to admit the harsh reality when they put their big girl panties on, that yes, your stock has dropped as a single mother. Whether you like it or not, you now have extra responsibility that a man of a certain caliber may choose to not take on. That is a fact. Now, when we start saying that, oh, you're the same as a virgin, as a 21-year-old virgin, you're the same, even though you have 4 kids out of wedlock. And that's what Black women want Black men to say. And that is not true. And I will defend my boy, okay?
I will as well. And so, and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan.
I like Cameron Samuels.
Honorable Louis Farrakhan said that the women are the middle or the most important part of society. You can judge society by what your woman looks like. So they carry some type of importance in society. And I know the men are the head, but the women are the neck. And I mean, you play chess, you know, the queen, she gets to go all over the board. She's very important.
Yeah, and I mean, you just basically like, and we have a problem in our community that we have a ton of women that unfortunately have overvalued themselves, and they want men that they are not qualified for, and they will look, and they will look at the man that works the hardworking job as a, you know, as a cleaner or cook or a chef or something, and they be like,
Yeah.
I got a
there.
degree.
I'm not saying I do agree there, but I feel like I do agree there. But however, I feel like the manosphere and Kevin Samuels have created an adversarial
They didn't create
Very adverse.
I don't
create
believe
it.
that.
It's
I
gone
don't
too-
they
it's
didn't
gone too
create
far
it.
in one
Exacerbate.
direction.
Yeah.
It's gone too far in one direction. I guess I would say on the right, and it also we definitely know it goes too far on the left. And I think there's not a balance in, you know, that scale is tipping, and it just goes too far one way or the other.
This is why I
So-
like the Black Wives movement, because I feel like it kind of brings in the men
Accountability.
and the women.
Yes.
You know, I feel like the
Exactly.
manosphere and
Yes.
Kevin Samuels have created an adversarial connection or relationship between men and women, and then we have, and it's not helpful to me.
It really isn't.
I would say this. I agree with your assessment, and I don't know that they created an adversarial relationship.
Well,
They
they
certainly
exploited it.
exacerbated it.
Right.
One of my issues with Kevin Samuels, and I think he, like many people, are good at diagnosing a problem.
Okay, yeah. Mhm.
But there's a difference between diagnosis and any jackleg. If you coughing up blood, somebody can say, "Look, you probably are sick," but that's different than saying, "I understand what the sickness is, and I understand what the treatment is." And one of my issues with some of the things that he would say, and I've seen this in other sort of commentary from relationship, podcasters, is
Andrew Tate.
well, not even Tate. I wasn't even thinking about him, and I'll mention one in particular, one show that I watch often. But Kevin Samuels' thing was, if you are a high value man, which is almost always defined by status, income, so on and so forth, that a woman should not expect a high value man to be faithful. And I have a problem with that as a Christian man. And this is where a lack of a biblical anthropology makes cultural analysis as well as policy making much, much more difficult. So now it may be the case that a man, I remember, I think it was back when he was known as Chad Johnson, and Evelyn Lozado was on one of them shows.
Yeah.
And they talking, he like, "Look, I'm not gonna be faithful." And she had to decide.
Wear a condom.
So she had to decide whether or not she could put up with that. And what I'm saying is, I think a high values man is more important than a high value man.
All right.
But that being said, I don't know if y'all familiar with the Kendra G show.
Oh my God. So this is where I get my parameter of how delusional these women are. Going back to what you said. They think everybody wants the same man.
Gotta be 6 feet,
6 feet.
$100,000.
Exactly. Exactly. And guess what they look like?
I mean,
Exactly.
I've seen, and I like Kendra G because it's a good cross section of the community when it comes to relationships. It's not just highly educated women. It's not just working class folks. I've seen college educated women who have 3 kids by 3 men talk about, now I'm looking for marriage. He has to be 6'4". Now she's 5'2". He has to be 6'4" and make $250,000 a year. And Kendra will just draw a picture and say, "Look, this is the man you're looking for. This is the closest you're gonna get to." But I've also seen, there was a guy the other day who came on. The caption said, was married twice, once to a man, once to a woman, wants somebody who makes $100,000. And I'm saying to myself,
Maybe on that too.
So I say that to say, neither men nor women have a completely clean record when it comes to this issue. The only person in the household who's faultless is the child.
Exactly.
We as men and women have to get past this, and I love the word you use, this adversarial sort of nature of our relationship, where one person is pointing and saying, "No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault." Now I would say, as a man, men who say, "I'm the head and I'm the lead," you can't both. When you pray for the sun, you get the light and the heat. So the crown is heavy.
Heavy is the crown. Yeah,
So
I
if you
just said
say
this.
I'm the lead, when something needs to move, you should say I'm going to take the initiative, because that's what leaders do. That being said, there's also things that women can do to make relationships extremely difficult.
Yep.
And I think the average man, when he comes home to his woman, is looking for rest and respect.
Yes.
He wants peace in his household.
Yes.
He's fighting the world all day long. He just wants a measure of peace in his household. And if he can't get it in his household, he's going to leave the household.
Yeah.
He's going to stay at work longer. He's going to hide in the basement. He's going to turn to other people outside of the home. And that causes trouble. And I think the average woman wants love and loyalty.
Right.
She doesn't want to have to worry about whether her husband is going to come home, right? Or whether he's tipping and dipping, and whether or not some woman's going to call and say, well, I have a baby by your husband.
No.
So I think these are both things that both parties need to work on if we want to sort of restore that marriage.
I want to pick up on something you just said. You said this, this man rightfully, he wants to come home. He wants peace and respect. She wants love and loyalty. But are women home anymore?
Women are out just as much.
I mean, I'm just saying.
They're in the
'cause,
street.
I mean, now you have both parties, both couples, both
Yeah.
spouses. They're working. The children are wherever they, school, things like that. I'm not saying neglected, but are women home anymore?
I mean, not as much as they used to be in terms of you talking about homemakers.
No, not even just that. But I'm just
okay.
saying, just the fact that, the statistics and the data, the culture says that both parties have to work, even just to make a modest living, American style living in America today.
Yeah, I mean, I think many couples feel like they need two incomes. It'd be great if we live, in a world in which there could be a household could be supported on one income, typically the man's income. I don't even know if that was the case, whether many modern women would take that deal, right? So for instance, let's say,
Yeah, you had somebody. I was looking in the comments last week, and somebody was trying to get with you.
They take care of you, baby.
Yes.
I'll take
I
care of you.
didn't say
too.
that.
So it's one of those things, and I think again, all these things are about values, what people value, and I've said this even to some of my conservative colleagues. If you took a group of conservative women from, let's say, Capitol Hill, right, and you took them to a middle school in D.C. or in Baltimore, and they're talking to an 8th grade class of girls, and they ask the girls, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And half the girls say, "I want to be president, a doctor, lawyer, engineer," and the other half say, "I want to be a wife and a mom." Those adult women are going to think, is that it? But only for one half of the room. Because the culture says education, economic independence, those are the things that you should prioritize, and you can fit family into that whenever it's convenient for you. And to the point where Ebony K. Williams, who on one day she's talking crazy stuff, next day she's talking
I know, yeah.
when she laments the fact that there's so few black sperm donors, that's an admission that I prioritize other things. And now I'm returning to the natural instinct that I have for family. And that instinct is strong. Very few people in this world, I would argue, are built socially, spiritually, relationally for a lifetime void of romantic relationship or void of children. When you see all them people walking around the city with their little pocket dogs, people saying, "I'm a dog mom," and I'm a
Even Larry Elder said he said that's his biggest regret is not having children.
Well, I know we beat up on Ebony Williams before, but I want to give credit when credit is due, because since she's come out with that recent talk saying, wait a minute, look, women, black women in particular, when you get 40 and maybe you have this X amount of income, the pool gets smaller. So I applaud her for, I even say courageously telling women this, and still she's taking the beat down, from a lot of women, basically saying she's
well, when the fox can't catch the grapes, he says it's sour, and that's what we're dealing with. Unfortunately, unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with is that we are not producing a quality product of husbands or wives, and now we're just saying, oh, well, I don't want to get married.
Yeah.
Lying.
Well, and then you have, again, we talk about culture. You have Joy Reid. You have the Sonny Hostin. You have these women on, Whoopi Goldberg. The numbers, right? All of these women, they talk about independent woman. We don't need a man. And the culture and society is creating it a lot more. They're enabling that type of culture. I mean, you know, who knows what AI is going to do before we this stuff. I mean, it's sick. You know, it's just they're creating this, and so it feeds into it, and with the sexualization of our children, of women. I don't know how we would. I don't know how we're going to get back to
because
some type of
somebody has to humble
normalcy.
themselves. Somebody has to humble themselves. Somebody has to take accountability, and no one wants to do that, especially women. For some reason, we never do anything wrong, and it's always someone else's fault. But it's like in this case, it's going to be who came first, the chicken or the egg, because we expect the men to step up, but then the men are like, "Why would we step up if you're going to be like that?" And we're like, "Well, you're this way," so it's going to be the blame game.
But I blame the men because a strong man can change the heart of a woman. I believe that with all my heart because I mean, I used to be a mega feminist, mega like you can't tell me nothing, total Democrat.
I can
Democrats
totally
are some
see
of the
that.
meanest women ever.
I
They
can see
really
that.
are.
Well, there's a lot of studies that say that too. People on the left are mean.
They are just mean. And so what I say is that the stronger the foundation of our society is, which is our men get, I think the women will have no choice but to fall in line.
Yeah, but they're feminizing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we are slowly getting rid of men. You know, and they're starting young, and they're targeting these men, whether it's online, whether it's in the schools. This is the agenda of the left. They are trying to do this, and so we have to have to combat that.
Well, go ahead, Delano.
No, I was just saying, and the crazy thing is that the left, you know, progressives, particularly the radical feminists, say, you know, we don't need man, patriarchy. And again, in the 60s, right, they get the bureaucratic patriarchy. So the government is the father. Now they move from patriarchy to matriarchy. Because now you have men who identify as women who turn around and tell the women, actually, sit down and shut up. We're the new boss babes in town.
Boss babes.
And what I said is women like Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow and all the most sort of powerful, influential
Lesbians
in the country
Facts.
have finally found a group of men that they can submit to. Because when trans women who are really biological males tell them, hey, I'm going to race on this team. I'm going to go in this bathroom. I'm going to go in this locker room. And there's not anything you can say about it.
Yes, sir.
They sit down and say,
They say yes, sir.
very, very obedient, very compliant. So yeah, I think society needs strong men. I think of when Jesus is talking in the New Testament, he said you can't rob a house until you bind up the strong man.
Bind the strong man.
Right? And men have been bound. Our mouths have been bound. Our hands have been tied. We need, I don't know if y'all watch Married with Children. I did.
Yeah, Al Bundy.
Right?
Hated that show.
We need No Fam or something like that, right? A new organization where men get a sense of confidence back. And I think there's a way to do that. And let me be clear, because I think somebody brought up the manosphere. Andrew Tate is not the answer.
Exactly.
The red pill manosphere is not the answer, because really the red pill manosphere and the pink hair feminists are mirror images of one another. They both say marriage is a bad deal for our team. They both say the laws disadvantage our team. They both say that men and women don't need one another. They both say that children are just as fine being raised by either one man or one woman. And I think that's the completely wrong message. So to me, what I like to do is to offer a more positive and affirming vision, particularly to young men, to say, look, marriage is the natural habitat for a man. He tends to be healthier. He tends to live longer.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Marriage and family is something for you to aspire to. It's what real men do. A family gives you something both to live and to die for. My wife knows that I would literally sacrifice my life for her. Her boss not gonna say that. But she's at home now. We homeschool. But before,
you retired your wife. Congratulations.
But before, when she worked at Child and Family Services, and her boss was a woman, but she's not gonna die for her.
Right.
None of these politicians would say if you don't vote for me, you're a bad woman. None of them are going to lay down her life for her.
No.
I will.
Yeah.
And I think young men need to know, like, look, this is something to aspire to. It's part of what it means to be a man. making a bunch of babies all across the city, none of whom you take care of, starting a family that sounds like a lumber yard. You got 5x5, 4x3. That's not what it's about. It's about starting a family, marrying a woman, right? Y'all having a family together and setting the foundation for intergenerational success. That's the other thing we don't talk about. Everything is about this generation.
No. They talk about it, but it's a trending word. They don't understand what it looks like. They don't want to put the work in for that to happen. They talk about it. Oh, generational success. Let's build. But they don't know what that means.
But when they talk about generational success, it's always about money for me.
Income.
Because a community that really believes in generational wealth is not going to support a party that says you should abort 1/3 of your children.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because our children are our generational wealth.
Yeah.
Right? So who you gonna pass it on to? So you know, but
And I think Andrew Tate does say a lot of what you're saying. I'm just.
He doesn't believe in marriage.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Nevertheless,
He does.
He literally said he does not believe in marriage.
He said he doesn't believe in marriage the way it is in the West. He's very specific about that.
you like Romanian marriage better?
I'm just saying.
I think he does.
But you're right. You do need to start early. Like even me, like even when my son is 5 and when my 14-year-old was 5, like that was what I used to tell them is you're gonna be a husband.
Yes.
You're gonna be a husband, and that's all. That's all my son like. I'm gonna get a wife.
Yes. Yes. Early.
I've already told my children, they can't use your comb. Don't bring them.
Oh God, I don't specify what kind of wife they can have. I don't specify.
He didn't listen. My son didn't listen. But no, I said the same things, and even still, I have an 18-year-old daughter.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
You know what I mean?
I can't use a comb.
That's
true.
You're not married
That's
to her
true.
either.
If you were to take your locks off, unravel them, you would be able to.
You know what she means.
I
You
know
know
exactly
what she
you
means.
know
too.
exactly.
You never heard that say?
Oh my God.
All right,
So her children cannot marry non-black people.
Oh, okay. I thought she was saying like they had to have soft hair.
Oh, wow.
We got
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
KJ.
I don't specify
Oh,
what
we
they bring
have a-
home as long as it's a biological
We have a
XX.
super chatter.
We do. I want to acknowledge a super chatter here tonight. Can you read that?
Something for the influence of white liberals.
Limit the influence.
Limit the influence of the white liberal. Your family is your business.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, Malcolm X said that pretty much. You know, kind of.
The white liberal is the evilest. Oh God, I can't stand.
But can I say something real
Yes,
quick? Because we were talking about how do we get out of this, and I think part of it is what we've been discussing. There's going to be a great separation within the
Oh my
community.
God.
It's already underway.
Oh,
Yes.
it's happening.
It's already underway.
Yes.
And it's sort of a national trend, but particularly within our community, because we have certain dynamics. When you vote 90% for one political party, what that party does and prioritize has a disproportionate impact on culture, values, politics, so on and so forth. And I think one of the things that needs to happen is that people need to intentionally create communities with like-minded people.
Oh yeah, for sure. My husband says that.
So
Well, that's the thing. I mean, and I feel like the black woman seems lost right now.
Yeah.
And so I would say the black man too.
And
It's
so
like,
no,
it takes
no,
two.
if you're talking about, and especially on conservative versus woke versus left, the black male seems to be waking up
Yeah.
a lot faster
slowly,
than the black.
not fast enough for my liking.
Right? No, not fast enough for my liking.
Not
either.
fast enough for my
But
liking.
And I'm not. I haven't even bought.
Yeah,
that
but
they
more
have
than
one.
the black
They're waking
female.
up
More than the
way
black
more
We'll
than the
know
black
on
female.
November 2024 because black men just don't vote. That's just true.
Oh.
Sorry, I digress.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think, and I know a number of guys personally, even I know guys in New York, different places where I know people
Are they single?
who were like, look, man, I'm down for Trump, man. I like
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
More males.
But I'll say this. I think even the way that we engage in political life is troubling and problematic.
It's
Because
too heavy.
correct. We putting too much emphasis
on the politics.
on politics. And we have more elected members of Congress today than we did in 1964.
Agreed.
And I certainly wouldn't say our community is
Ain't
in better
fixing
shape.
us. Thomas Sowell says that.
Right. So it's one of them things where I think, do I think some black men are getting their heads, starting to see things clearly? Yes. I will say this. I think there are a number of black men who keep their thoughts on politics private because they're scared of their wives and their girlfriends.
Yeah.
And they're scared of the social penalty that comes with being associated with conservatism.
Agreed.
And so you can't be the man of your own house if you can't even tell your wife who you're voting
That's
for.
a waste.
Exactly. And you can't tell her who we're voting for.
Right.
Period. And I'm like
I feel
seriously,
you.
like these men. No, I'm not gonna. No.
It's
Yes.
a waste of a whole masculine man. Women, if you can't make sure that these men lead their houses, then you go and lead your own.
Oh, wow.
Agreed.
All right, I do want to acknowledge our super chatters. We have Krista tonight. Thank you so much. Can someone read what Krista said?
I know. I can't see the first part because of the way the
Coming up,
screen is.
15 years married is hard at times, but I wouldn't give my husband up for anything.
No, that's right.
I got lucky, love, and honey to my pop family.
Oh,
Oh, Krista, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
love you, Krista. We love you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you
love
so
my
much.
chatter, Ryan Hart.
Yes.
What did he
Great
say?
conversation.
Oh,
yes,
thank
it is. No, this is
you.
a wonderful conversation.
Oh,
Jazz.
Jazz.
Oh, no comment, Jazz.
Yes.
For money. All right.
What's up
Thank
with that,
you for
Jazz?
that. Thank you.
Jeff.
Shelly's gonna get
All
married
right.
this weekend.
So we are at the end of our time
We are?
tonight.
Oh, we are.
Yes, we are. Delano, where can people find you, your social media, and more of your articles?
Well, probably the easiest way is just to follow me on Twitter. So it's at Delano, Delano Squires, Squires. I tend to post a lot of my stuff there. I do some on Instagram, but Twitter is my main vehicle. I'm trying to stay out of trouble, but
No.
not very successful.
No, these people
Well,
are crazy.
like-
Well, wait a minute. We got to put a plug because if you want to get Delano, he may not be able to respond. We know him, so call him. We'll get the message to him.
Go to pop.
And when does the book come out? You have a book you're writing, right?
It'll probably be out sometime next year in 2025.
all right.
So I'm writing
Oh,
it
good.
now and talking about with a heavy emphasis on how to rebuild. Because I think there are a lot of people who I say can diagnose problems. I want to offer something different in the public square about how we get to the point of solutions. And as I said, we're going to talk about slavery. We're going to talk about big government. We're going to talk about sexual revolution. We're going to talk about institutions. Rebuilding the black family is a civil rights issue. I plan on writing separate chapters, 2 black men and 2 black women,
Oh, wow.
talking about love and loyalty and rest and respect. And then my last chapter, I think I'm going to title it Moratorium, because I think we need to put the Ibram Kendian sort of anti-racism equity agenda to bed for at least 5 to 10 years.
He needs to go away.
And to focus with intensity on this particular issue, because priorities are the observed allocation of scarce resources, right? Time is a priority.
Yeah.
Money is a priority.
Mhm.
But so is righteous indignation. You can't be hot about 10 different issues at one time.
That's so.
So you have to say, you know what? This is really the most important thing that we're facing right now. And we're going to focus on this like a laser. And what I want sort of the broader black leadership class to do is to take all the energy that they put into getting white people straight.
Put it in.
Yes.
You must say that my life matters.
Yeah.
You must affirm me and
It
validate me.
Right.
Doesn't.
Pour that into saying we have to get our
Out.
own community straight.
Yes.
And saying, woman, I love you. Man, I love you. Let's build a family together.
Yes.
Ooh, well, Shando.
And that will fix a lot of our
The
problems.
door to the church is open.
Yes. Let the
All
church
right.
say amen.
Wow, thank you for coming
Amen.
on.
All right.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Good.
Fun. I love
Only yelled one time.
Yeah.
It's all good. That's normal
brought
decibel level for
calm.
New York.
You brought calm to
I
this.
felt I was back on the bus.
Don't
on the 2
down.
train.
No, you brought calm to us tonight.
Okay.
Thanks
We
for coming.
usually
Absolutely.
live.
We were just like,
Ah.
listening.
So, all right. So, this brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for watching. Continue the conversation by commenting on our YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and subscribe. That way, you get up to the minute content when we post, and we appreciate the support. Each time you subscribe, it helps make our voice that much stronger. We are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. Again, you can check us out on our website at www.leftist, www.popandpoliticslive.com. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, count your blessings and live a life of purpose.
Hug a man, hug a woman.
Good night.
We need to dismantle the patriarchy. We could consider that there are actually more women than men in universities, more women than men who hold PhDs. Women are being preferentially selected for jobs, not for being the best candidates, but to fill equity quotas that favor women. Women hold all the power in divorce courts. Laws incentivize women to leave their husbands and take the kids, destroy men and get paid to do it, or skip marriage altogether and just have children for the paycheck. I mean, is there really any opportunities that we want that we do not have? I know there's plenty of things that we don't want to do, and luckily we can just leave that to the men, while this evil patriarchy ideology conditions little girls to cringe at the thought of being just a mom and debases building homemaker skills in favor of building an army of boss is ready to tear down the patriarchy, when all it's really doing is tearing apart families, tearing apart relationships, and tearing down our femininity. And with that goes our chance at peace in our home, peace in our communities, in our nation, and on this planet. And maybe that's the point.